Vishnu Harihe Ammaham. So, the chapter 14 of the Buddha's teaching emphasizes on the Bodhisattva idea. Bodhisattva, as expressed by Sri Sanghbodhi, this body of flesh and blood I bear just for the world's good and welfare. In the teachings of the Buddha, for the realization of the ultimate goal, there are three modes of enlightenment, Bodhi, one of which an aspirant may choose in accordance with his particular temperament. They are Shavaka Bodhi, Pakka Bodhi, and Samma Bodhi. Shavaka Bodhi is the enlightenment of a disciple. The small kids. This is known as the Arhat ideal. He who aspires to become an Arhat usually seeks the guidance of a superior enlightened instructor. A slight indication from an understanding teacher would alone be sufficient for a morally advanced aspirant. To progress on the upward path of enlightenment. Venerable Sariputta, for instance, attained the first stage of sainthood. Hearing only half a stanza from the Arhat Ashajik, the sorrow afflicted Pattakara, who lost all those dear to hear under tragic circumstances, they might have started weeping. Their followers, disciples, attained arhatship by watching the water that washed her feet. The childlike Kesha Gotami, who implored the Buddha for a cure for her dead infant, attained sainthood by watching a lamp that was being extinguished. Kulapanthaka, who could not memorize a verse for 4 months, attained arhatship by meditating on impermanence while handling a clean piece of white cloth in his hand, gazing at the sun. Literally a hearer, literally a worthy or passionless one. After achieving his goal, an arhat devotes the remainder of his life to serving other seekers of peace by example and by precept. First, he purifies himself and then he tries to purify others by expounding to them the teachings which he himself has followed. An arhat is more qualified to teach the Dhamma than ordinary worldling teachers who have no realization of truth, since he speaks from personal experience. There is nothing selfish in the noble ideal of arhatship, for arhatship is gained only by eradicating all forms of selfishness, self illusion, and egoism are some of the fighters that have to be discarded in order to attain arhanship. The wise men and women who lived in the time of the Buddha and others later benefited by the golden opportunity offered by him to gain their enlightenment in this present life itself. About Pakka Bodhi is the independent enlightenment of a highly evolved person who achieves his goal by his own efforts without seeking any external aid. Such a holy person is termed a Pakka Paksheka private Buddha because he lacks the power to purify and serve others by expounding the Dhamma, which he himself has discovered. Nevertheless, he teaches morality. Paksheka Pakka Buddhas arise only during those periods when the teaching does not exist. Their number is not limited only to one at a particular time, as in the case of Sammasambuddhas. Although the Buddha Gautama of the present era has passed away, we are still living in a Buddha cycle, for the teaching still exists in its pristine purity. Accordingly, no Pakshika Buddhas arise during this period. In the Khaggavishana Sutta of the Sutta Nipata are treasured some beautiful sayings of Pakshika Buddhas. A few of their wise utterances are quoted below. Like number one, leaving aside the casual towards all beings, harming none of them, let him not yearn for sons or friends, but wander alone like a rhinoceros. Number two, affection arises from intimacy, and sorrow results thereby. Realizing the evil born of affection, wander alone like a rhinoceros. We certainly prize the value of comradeship. One should associate with superiors of equals. Failing them, lead a blameless life and wander alone like a rhinoceros. Number four, variegated, sweet, and enchanting are sensual pleasures. In diverse forms, they seduce the heart. Recognizing their menace, wander alone like a rhinoceros. For other creatures also. Cold and heat, hunger, thirst, wind, sun, mosquitoes, and snakes overcome them all and wander alone like a rhinoceros. Number six, like a lion that does not tremble at every sound. like the wind that does not cling to the meshes of net, like the lotus that is unsoiled by the mud, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Number seven, in due season, cultivate loving kindness, equanimity, compassion, release appreciative joy, and unwarted by the world, wander alone like a rhinoceros. He refers about birth's reincarnation. Then Sammasambodhi is the supreme enlightenment of a most developed, most compassionate, most loving, all knowing, perfect being. He who attains this bodhi is called Sammasambuddha, literally a fully self enlightened one. He is so called because he not only comprehends the Dhamma by his own efforts and wisdom, but also expounds the doctrine to seekers of truth to purify and save them from this ever recurring cycle of birth and death. Unlike the private Buddhas, only one Supreme Buddha arises at a particular time, just as on certain trees one flower alone blooms. Then he who aspires to attain some Buddhahood is called Bodhisattva. This Bodhisattva ideal is the most refined and the most beautiful that could ever, in this egocentric world, be conceived for what is nobler than a life of service and purity. Those who, in the course of their wanderings in samsara, wish to serve others and reach ultimate perfection, are free to pursue the Bodhisattva ideal, but there is no compulsion that all must strive to attain Buddhahood, which to say the least is practically impossible. Practically impossible. Critics who contend that the Bodhisattva ideal was evolved to counteract the tendency to a cloistered, placid, and inert monastic life, only reveal ignorance of the pure Buddha Dhamma. The Abhisamayalankara Loka, a later Sanskrit word, a sub-commentary to the Prajna Paramita states, the great disciples, Shravakas, having attained two kinds of enlightenment, that is, of the Shravaka proper and the Pratyeka Buddha with and without residue, remains with their minds full of fear, since they are deprived of great compassion and highest wisdom, Uru Karuna Prajna Vaikalena, owing to the cessation of the force of life produced by the previous biotic force, the attainment of nirvana becomes possible. But in reality, the next sense are possessed only of that seeming nirvana, which is called it nirvana, resembling an extinguished light. The birds and the three sphere of existence have ceased, but after their worldly existence has taken an end. The arhants are born in the most pure sphere of Buddhist, actively in the unaffected plane. Anasravadhatu in state of perceptual trance and abiding within the petals of lotus flowers. Padma Fute Sujayante. Thereafter, the Buddha, Amitabha, Tathagata, and other Buddhas resembling the sun aroused them in order to remove the undefined ignorance. Akilishtan. Thereupon the Aryans make their creative effort for supreme enlightenment, and thou they abide in a state of deliverance. They act in the phenomenal world as if they were making a descent to hell, and gradually having accumulated all the factors for the attainment of enlightenment, they become teachers of living beings, that is, Buddhas. This is an absolutely fantastic view, completely foreign to the spirit of the original teachings of the Buddha. It is argued that arhanship is selfish or selfless, and that all must strive to attain Buddhahood to save others, or for your own sake. Well, one might ask, what is the object of attaining Buddhahood? Is it to make others attain arhanship and save them? If so, the logical conclusion is that Buddhahood itself fosters selfishness, which is absurd. Buddhahood is indisputably the best and the noblest of all the three ideals, but all are not capable of achieving this highest ideal. As endorsed here by the writers, surely all scientists cannot be Einsteins and Newtons. There must also be lesser scientists who help the world according to their capabilities. The Pali term Bodhisatta is composed of Bodhi, which means wisdom or enlightenment, and Satta, which means devoted to or intent on. A bodhisatta therefore means one who is devoted to or intent on wisdom or enlightenment. The Sanskritized form should be Bodhisatta, but the popular term is Bodhisatta, which means wisdom being or a being aspiring to become a Buddha. This term is generally applied to anyone who is striving for enlightenment, but in the strictest sense of the term, should be applied only to those who are destined to become supremely enlightened ones. In one sense, all are potential Buddhas, for Buddhahood is not the special prerogative to specially graced persons. It should be noted that Buddhists do not believe that there lies dormant in us all a divine spark that needs development, for they deny the existence of a creator, but they are conscious of the innate possibilities and the creative power of man. Buddhism denies too the existence of a paramount soul that transmigrates from life to life, acquiring all experiences. Instead of an unchanging soul, the so called essence of man, it possesses a dynamic life flux where there is an identity in process. As a man, Prince Siddhartha, son Buddha, by his own will, wisdom, and love, attained Buddhahood, the highest state of perfection any being could aspire to, and he revealed to mankind the only path that leads thereto. A singular characteristic of Buddhism is that anyone may aspire to the state of the teacher himself, if only he makes the necessary exertion. The Buddha did not claim any monopoly of Buddhahood. It is not a sort of evolutionary process. It may be achieved by one's own effort without the help of another. The Buddha does not condemn men by calling them wretched sinners, but on the contrary, encourages them, saying that they are pure in heart at conception. Instead of disheartening followers, creating an inferiority complex, and reserving the exalted state of Buddha to himself, he encourages them and inspires them to emulate him. 3. Professor Rance Davis writes in his Buddhist birth stories, page preface 34, there is a religious romance called Balaram and Joseph. Balaram or Joseph might be Krishna, might be referred by Joseph, giving the history of an Indian prince who was converted by Balaram, Balaram and become a hermit. The Ram and become a hermit. This history, the reader will be surprised to hear, is taken from the life of the Buddha. And Joseph is merely the Buddha under another name. The word Joseph or Jophat being simply a corruption of the word Bodhisattva as Bodhisattva. Joseph is in Arabic written also Yudhashtaf in this through a confusion between the Arabic letters Y and B is for Bodhisattva. See Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics, Volume 6, page 567. So instead of this hurting flowers, creating an inferiority complex and reserving the exalted state of Buddha to himself, he encourages them and inspires them to emulate him. A bodhisattva need not necessarily be a Buddhist. We may find ever loving bodhisattvas among Buddhists today though they may be unaware of their lofty aspirations. And bodhisattvas may also be found among other religionists as well. There are three types of bodhisattvas as stated here, like according to Buddhism. There are three types of bodhisattvas, namely intellectual bodhisattvas, Pannadikam, devotional bodhisattvas, Shaddadikam, and energetic bodhisattvas, Viryadikam. These three kinds of bodhisattvas corresponds to Manna Yogi, Bhakti Yogi, and Karma Yogi of the Hindus. As it is stated here, intellectual bodhisattvas are less devotional and more energetic. Devotional ones are less energetic and more intellectual. Energetic ones are less intellectual and more devotional. Seldom if ever are these three characteristics harmoniously combined in one person. The Buddha Gautama is cited as one of the intellectual group. According to the books, the intellectual one attains Buddhahood within a short period. Devotional one take a longer time and energetic one take longer still. Intellectual bodhisattvas concentrate more on the development of wisdom and on the practice of meditation than on the observance of external forms of homage. They are always guided by reason and accept nothing on blindly. They make no self surrender and are not slaves either to a book or to an individual. They prefer lonely meditations with their silent but powerful thoughts of peace radiating from their solitary retreats. They render moral help to suffering humanity. The element of pity, shraddha, or trustful confidence is predominant in the devotional bodhisattvas. With the sadha as their companion, they achieve their goal. These bodhisattvas take a keen interest in all forms of homage. The image of the Buddha is a great inspiration to them. It should be understood that Buddhists do not worship an image, they pay homage to what it represents and reflect on the virtues of the Buddha. The more they think of the Buddha, the more they love him. This is the reason why Buddhism does not denounce these external forms of homage, Amisha Puja, Thou undoubtedly practice Pati Puja is more commendable and indisputably superior. But dry intellect has to be flavored with the sadhu fat to obtain satisfactory results, as excessive sadhu might also sometimes be detrimental. It has to be restrained by wisdom. The energetic ones always seek opportunities to be of service to others. Nothing gives them greater delight than active service. For them, work is happiness and happiness is work. They are not happy unless they are active. As King Sanghabodhi of Sri Lanka said, they bear this body of flesh and blood for the good and happiness of the world. It's a genuine request to live peacefully for your sake and serve others. It's a blessing. They live not only for themselves but for others as well. This spirit of selfless service is one of the chief characteristics of all bodhisattvas. Like they follows the path where services could be offered for offering essential goods and life-saving services, gifts of prosperity to the people, so that they can experience the bliss of mightiness. So, the spirit of selfless service is one of the chief characteristics of all bodhisattvas. With a relentless energy, they work not as slaves but as masters. They crave for neither fame nor name. They are interested only in service. It is immaterial to them whether others recognize their selfless service or not. They are utterly indifferent to praise or blame. So there should be what we can say sense of care, mercy, compassion to the others so that their life could be protected. They are utterly indifferent to praise or blame. They forget themselves in their disinterested service to others. They would sacrifice their even life itself. Could such action save another fellow beings? There are soldiers, martyrs who sacrifices their life for ensuring safety of the life of the masses. A bodhisattva who forgets himself in the service of others should practice karuna and metta, compassion and loving kindness to an exceptionally high degree. A bodhisattva desires the good and welfare of the world. He loves all beings as mother loves her only child. He identifies himself with all. To him, nothing gives more delight than to think that all are his brothers and sisters. He is like a mother, a father, a friend, a teacher to all beings. The compassion of a bodhisattva consists in realizing the equality of oneself with others. Paramatmam sammata and also the substitution of others for oneself. Paratma parivartanam. When he does so, he loses his I notion and finds no difference between himself and others. He returns good for evil and helps even and ask the very persons who have wronged him, for he knows that the strength of a religious teacher is his patience. It is also questionable. The debate continues and it brings the resolution of the thoughts process of the person, that how he agree or differ his thoughts or perceptions with that of the existence incarnation of God. Being revealed, I repeat, being revealed, he reveals, not being beaten, he beats, not being annoyed, he annoys not. His forgiveness is unfailing, even as the Mother Earth suffers in silence all that may be done to her. In this manner, the chapter concludes and it continues for other French where it could be observed. So, greetings to all, but today I am feeling some sort of like a weakness, it may appear. So the chapter will conclude here itself, it will continue tomorrow. About chapter 41, Rami Perfections. So, the message are work for the welfare of others, written by Sutta Nipata, and it continues. Thank you for the day. You can think to review the contents and make notes of the word meanings for your proper understanding of the related context. Thank you. Om Vishnu Namaha Harihi